So, Eagles coach Nick Sirianni said after yesterday's 41-7 wipeout of my Dallas Cowboys that he has a lot of thinking to do. Sirianni said he wasn't sure whether he'd allow Saquon Barkley to make a run at Eric Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record when the Eagles host the Giants in next Sunday's regular season finale. Obviously, some injury risk would be involved with that, not to mention just giving Saquon a week off to recover from the punishment of a 2,000-plus yard season. Saquon's already carried the ball 345 times this season, which is already 50 more times than he carried it in 2022, which was his career high in carries. And don't forget, Saquon has caught the football 33 times, so that's 378 total touches. Man, that's a whole lot of collisions. The Eagles have clinched the 2 seed. The Eagles have absolutely nothing to play for this coming Sunday. Heck, all the starters need some rest, some recovery. So obviously, the smart move here for the Philadelphia Eagles is to ignore the fans' outcry and to sit Saquon Sunday. And obviously, because I picked the Eagles before the season started to win this year's Super Bowl, you'd think I'd be the first to pound this table and say, come on, Eagles, wake up, wise up, prioritize winning the Super Bowl over some risky individual record. And you would be wrong. In this extremely rare circumstance, I do believe it makes more sense to let Saquon try to break my friend Eric Dickerson's record. I say take the plunge, take the risk, ignore the criticism, and I say it would help propel the entire team, especially the offensive line, into the postseason if Saquon could, in fact, break this record. It's extremely unlikely Saquon Barkley will have this chance again. My friend Eric Dickerson never had that shot again, never went over 2,000 yards again in his all-time great career. And yes, I do realize Eric Dickerson set this record in just 16 versus this year's, obviously, this time 17 games. But don't forget this. Eric Dickerson had 379 carries in that record year. That's 34 more than Saquon has right now. And by the way, just for the record, Saquon went for 167 against my Dallas Cowboys on Sunday without the threat of having Jalen Hurts as the read option in the backfield. So he did that against my Cowboys. I didn't think he'd get 100. He did it by himself. You got to give him that. So all of this should make it clear to you what an incredibly special year Saquon has had in the age of devaluing the running back. Yeah, most teams right now think running backs are a dime a dozen. They have for the last 5 or so years. Running backs readily available in the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th round. I mean, no way was my man Jerry Jones going to make a play for Saquon or even for Derrick Henry, who, by the way, lives in Dallas and badly wanted to play for Dallas. So why did I pick the Eagles to beat the Ravens in the Super Bowl? Well, in part, because the Eagles went right out and they signed Saquon. Interesting. And because the Ravens basically stole Derrick Henry. Jerry stuck with the undrafted Rico Dowdle, who, by the way, has actually had a pretty good year for the 7-9 Dallas Cowboys. Look, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I was never all that much of a Saquon fan when he was a Giant, except for off the field, because I did have him in studio on TV before he was drafted. What a good kid he came across as. What a fine young man he was. At that point, he seemed so smart, so mature, so humble, had such high character. Yet, as I began to watch him as a Giant, he was mostly just a home run hitter. He didn't do singles and doubles as a Giant. Wasn't much of a factor banging the ball between the tackles. Rarely made his own holes. Could only burn a defense if it happened to let him get loose and escape. As a Giant, Saquon was good for, one or two long runs a game, surrounded by a whole lot of what John Madden used to call none-yard runs. Zeros, ones, minus ones, zeros, ones, minus ones. The Cowboys dominated Saquon's Giants, just owned Saquon's Giants, did not lose to Saquon's Giants. But that was when Saquon was a Giant, a small Giant. But all that changed this season in Philadelphia. Saquon won me over this season in Philadelphia. And I hate the Eagles. I have since I was a diehard Cowboy fan at age 10. Saquon, as an Eagle, started to make a lot of his own holes. Saquon ran hard this season, all season long. Saquon changed the way the Eagles play football. Saquon went from a white-collar back in New York to a blue-collar back in Philly. He went from an above-it-all back to in the middle of it all back, a thoroughbred of a workhorse in Philadelphia. Man, what a season he's had. I still have Josh Allen slightly as MVP, just slightly, but it's getting closer and closer. Look, Saquon has earned the right to finish it off. This team has earned the right to help him finish it off. Now, for the biggest reason this is really a big deal, I have long said that Eric Dickerson, to me, was the greatest running back ever. I first saw Eric Dickerson one August day in Dallas, Texas. I was the columnist for the Dallas Morning News. Ron Meyer, then SMU's head coach, called me at home that August morning and asked me to please come out to that afternoon's practice and see this freshman running back from Sealy, Texas, because Ron Meyer told me I don't have a junior or senior who can tackle him. And he had some talent on those teams, as you might remember. Bought talent, but talent nonetheless. So, as you know, Eric Dickerson wound up leading the NFL in rushing 4 times. And I was there in Anaheim that day when my division-winning Dallas Cowboys played the Rams in a playoff game. The Rams featuring the immortal Dieter Brock at quarterback. No runner was Dieter Brock. No thrower was Dieter Brock. Eric Dickerson had to go solo, and I watched Eric Dickerson run roughshod over my Cowboys, run my Cowboys off the field and right into the ground. Eric Dickerson that day ran for 248 yards. In a 20-0 Rams domination. They didn't need a quarterback that day. Eric Dickerson was the flip side of Saquon, who's obviously built a little shorter and stouter. Eric was built long and tall. 6'3", 225 pounds. Eric Dickerson ran upright, but could he ever run? He ran a 9.4 yard dash in high school. He and Saquon were both timed right around 4.4 in the 40 coming out of college. But to me, ED was just a tick faster than Saquon is, and Saquon can obviously fly. As Eric Dickerson's Rams coach John Robinson once said, he ran without noise. He was so smooth. Eric Dickerson had this instant full speed acceleration with power. I loved watching my man Emmett and Barry and OJ and certainly the late, great Jim Brown. But to me, Eric Dickerson had the greatest, purest, smoothest combination of speed and power I ever saw. Just beautiful to watch. So this record that Eric set is no fluke. What an honor it would be for Saquon to break this record. As much as I love me some ED, I would honor Saquon if he breaks ED's record. He has earned the right to try to break this record. By the way, the Giants are second to last in stopping the run this season, so give him a shot. As much as I'm rooting for my preseason pick, Eagles to win it all, I publicly acknowledge that I endorse Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman, their executive of the year, to break all the obvious rules and to let Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles make a risky run at the 101 yards needed to break a 40-year-old record set by the greatest running back ever.